Hey podcaster, I'm Tim Wahlberg, your podcast performance coach, with another actionable tip so you can sound like a pro and gain more podcast fans. Today's tip is all about the tease. In this episode, I'll give you an example of what a great tease sounds like, why you should be using them, and the most important element to include when you create one. Now that's what I call a tease. Let me start by saying if you're not using teases in your podcast, it's time to start. And if you are using teases, you better be doing them right. Many podcasters don't use teases primarily because they don't know they should. Now, I see a few of you are scratching your noggins, so does everyone know what a tease is?
Yes.
All right, what is it?
It's when you put whipped cream on your genitalia.
No. Well, yes, but no, not this time. Not when I'm talking about podcasting. A tease is quite simply a sentence or two short sentences that gives the listener a reason to keep listening. You're teasing them with what's coming up on your show. You're dangling a carrot in front of them. But these days, it better be more like a double red velvet cream-filled cupcake with mile-high frosting on it. Or a bouquet of chicken wings, depending on what you fancy. My point is, your tease better be enticing to your listener. A tease is most commonly used at the top of your episode, and that's where it should be, but really, you could use a tease anytime during your show, and it's okay to have more than one. Using one at the beginning of your episode is especially important if you have a sponsored message to read. Give the listener a reason to stick around beyond the ads. But remember, a tease can also be used to keep people engaged during an interview to ensure listeners stick around to the end. Ever watch a newscast where they preview a story about a daring rescue of a cute little puppy that got stuck in a drain pipe? The producers purposely will tease a story like this, or one about the 3 deadliest foods in your fridge. And they'll tease it at the top of the broadcast, and they'll tease it going into every commercial break for the next hour to keep you watching. Then they finally show you the 15-second rescue video in the last 90 seconds of their show. And you sucker, you hung around until the very end to see it. But I'm guilty too. The reason they tease is because it works. So here's what you need to know about an effective tease. The biggest and most important is W-I-I-F-Y-L. Yes, that's wiffle or wifle, I guess. Maybe it just rolls off the tongue. So remember again, it's wifle, wiffle, W-I-I-F-Y-L. Okay, maybe it doesn't sound so hot, but what it stands for is what's in it for your listener. This is the one thing to remember. What's the payoff for the listener if they keep listening? And you know me, it's all about the listener. I hear people rattling off guest accolades and trying to pass them off as a tease. It's not. It doesn't matter if your guest has written 10 books or is famous on Instagram. Tell me, the listener, what I'm going to get out of their brilliance. Tell me how my life is going to be better or potentially better by the end of this podcast. How's this tease? Coming up on today's show, a man who has written 3 books, is a professor of sociology, and loves social media. Okay, you might intrigue a few people with that, and you might have a few fans who trust you enough to stick around, but most listeners, meh. Back to browse podcasts. Compare it to this tease. Is your profile picture repelling followers and leads? My guest today explains the power of the profile pic and the one easy thing you can do to double your social media following. That was my mind just being blown. Who's sticking around now? Everyone. You've told your listener very clearly what's in it for them. There are serious stakes for not listening. You've piqued their interest. You better believe they're titillated. The easy part is that most of the time, you know what the gold is in advance. And like I said in my last episode, and in episode 6, Demanding a Takeaway, you've already prepped your guests so they're ready to deliver that gold. All you have to do is sell it. But a couple of cautions when it comes to using the tease. 1, don't tease something you can't deliver. Like, and by the end of this podcast, you'll have started a $4 billion empire. The other caution is that your podcast is not the TV show Inside Edition. Don't get into the habit of using fear as part of your tease. Your listener will catch on. Trust me, it's effective, but if you're using the phrase could save your life in most of your teases, you're doing it wrong. Try staying positive. Remember, WIIFYL. It's that simple little acronym that rolls off the tongue. What's in it for your listener? Wiffle, 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 wiffle. Here's what I want you to do for your next podcast. Spend more time crafting your tease. Or if you're not using teases, start using them. Use this basic anatomy of a tease. Grab their attention, tell them what's in it for them, but don't give them so much that they feel like they don't need to listen. Sell it. Get excited about it. In the end, you'll have listeners that stay longer and know exactly what they've gotten out of your show when it's done. And I hope that's just the tip you need. Check out my coaching packages at podcastperformancecoach.com.
On the next episode of Just the Tip, Coach Tim reveals how to get 1 million downloads in 24 hours. Plus, the top 3 things your podcast studio says about you. And 6 foods that will ruin your podcast voice. Then, the one-eared podcaster. And why is this woman driving a cantaloupe? Plus, marshmallows. Nature's Q-tips.